The next piece is app and data protection. So the challenges that we have right today, in most scenarios, we have file servers sitting on the network with more and more and more storage being added to it every year because the file sizes continue to grow. We might be using offline file sync, which if anybody has used that, that presents its own fun. File types and group policies to determine whether I'm a slow connection or a fast connection can be very frustrating. Roaming, right? So if I'm here in St. Louis and my home drive is on a file server here in St. Louis and then I have to go to Asia for some reason, the experience can be very poor for that user if they're having to go across a very slow WAN link back to get to their home drive. Especially if you're doing folder redirection, that can be very challenging. And then of course, everybody's favorite when they go to visit a user to resolve something, right? They've got all of their documents just splattered all over the desktop, right? Which may or may not be redirected. So the impact there is potentially data volatility, right? Do I know where users are saving data? Is it safe in the event that that data or that machine crashes? Managing now ACLs that can grow more and more complex on my file servers. I can access that, right? If I don't have this other Windows Hello and stuff set up, and I get your password, I can get to that content from anywhere, including an untrusted device. And it's expensive. Maintaining the life cycle of a file server that contains terabytes of data can get very expensive because you have to patch that machine, right? You have to keep up with it. You have to do the maintenance on it. You have to have somebody in your operations team making sure they're keeping that up to date, right? And we're always expanding additional storage because we're always running out. So there's cost there as well. And then ransomware, right? So if my data is on the drive and it's not properly backed up, right? So if I'm doing offline file sync, I might not be able to sync data that I'm working on locally until I connect to a VPN and then hope that the connection is good enough to where it syncs my data back. Ransomware has been as everybody I'm sure has heard, has been a pretty hot topic for the last few years. Seems to be the way that most hackers want to go now, because if they get you in the right spot, you have no choice but to pay them, right, to get your data back. So it's ingenious from a very poor point of view, but we have to figure out ways to protect ourselves from ransomware. First line of defense in that is, in my opinion, and a lot of people are using it, is OneDrive for Business. Is anybody not using Office 365 in here? So everybody owns OneDrive for Business. And if I'm not mistaken, Rick, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but you get a terabyte of home drive space per user with Office 365 for your OneDrive for Business. Yeah, that just comes standard with your licensing, 1 terabyte. So think about how many users you have in your organization times 1 terabyte times the cost of storage and upkeep of file servers. Right? That's a significant amount of money. OneDrive for Business, you already own it. Right? You can do things like folder redirection. So take my laptop, for example. We use OneDrive for Business. All of my main folders that I care about, desktop, pictures, documents, videos, basically everything but downloads, which I don't want to back up, are redirected into my OneDrive for Business folder, and those are all synced into my OneDrive account. Right? And the beauty of that is I can sync anywhere I get on the internet. I don't have to have a VPN connection to get back to a file server and then hope the things sync before I get off. Right? The sync engine in OneDrive for Business is very, very good, and you can control bandwidth and things like that through policies. I can also apply conditional access policies to access my data. Right? And a traditional file server, I'm not sure there's a way, that maybe there's third-party utilities, but natively I can't do a conditional access to my home drive in a traditional file server. But with OneDrive for Business, I can make sure that whoever's accessing that data is on a device that meets the compliancy of my organization. And then data loss prevention, right? So that's huge in many organizations, probably in most organizations, right? Being able to identify or block things like documents that contain social security numbers. Right? I can't really do that today in a traditional file server manner unless I implement some third-party solution that's built into the Office 365 platform to where I can apply data loss prevention policies to my OneDrive for Business. And probably most of us would agree that no infrastructure to maintain is a beautiful thing, right? We let Microsoft maintain that in Azure. So other than OneDrive for Business, which is anybody doing OneDrive for Business folder redirection and offline sync? Awesome. Rick, you're on it. So the other piece is BitLocker, or really encryption, right? BitLocker, if you own Windows 10 Pro or Enterprise, it's built into the operating system and you're free to use it. MBAM, or the Microsoft BitLocker Administration and Management, I think is what that stands for, is a really nice solution for managing BitLocker. That is actually coming to SCCM if you haven't heard yet. So in the next tech preview, I believe they're actually integrating MBAM so that you can fully manage your BitLocker all from within your SCCM console, which is nice. But the key there is protecting my data at rest. So if somebody does get a hold of my device, they can't pop my hard drive out, go stick it in another device and gain access to everything that I've synced locally in my OneDrive. So if it's not BitLocker, some sort of encryption. For IT guys, we always want to make sure whatever that encryption is has an API or some way to interface with it in a scripted manner, so for things like Windows 10 we can deal with. Yes, sir?
The other nice thing about OneDrive for Business versus your file shares, your individual file shares, is once the person leaves the company, Microsoft cleans up for you. As opposed to, we all hate deleting stuff. We give it to the manager, hey, you have 90 days to take this thing, but then they never get to it. So we end up with these things all over the place.
Yeah. And if you have like MFA enabled as well, right? I can go to any browser, I can get to my OneDrive stuff. If I don't have my computer, I can get to it, secured with an MFA authentication, and all my data is available anywhere I go that I can get on the internet. And you own it. That's the beauty of it, is if you're Office 365, you own that. Conditional access, we talked a little bit about. I'll just kind of let you read that if you can. I know it's probably a little small, but I know you guys are using conditional access, right? Is anybody else using conditional access in their environment today? No. Okay. It's a great way to make sure that untrusted devices or insecure devices do not come onto your network and access the kind of content that can make them dangerous, right? So all of the cloud Office 365 stuff, you can put conditional access on. Windows 10, you can put conditional access on to access certain services, or even the login process, right? We can make sure that your device, we define what a compliant device for my organization looks like, and your device has to meet those compliancy requirements before I allow you to access things like your email, right? Your OneDrive for Business, SharePoint, things like that. Really, really powerful stuff. So conditional access, make sure our device is compliant. Right, with conditional access, we can block logins from untrusted IPs. Right, we can integrate with multi-factor authentication or have these conditional access require MFA enrollment. Things like making sure your device is managed by Intune if you're an Intune shop. Right, you can put a conditional access policy that says you don't get access to anything until your device is enrolled, and I've applied my security policies, my settings, my applications to your device. So the hero moment there is protecting and securing your company data. Right? So these tools really allow you to enhance the security, which everybody wants, right? But making it a more user-friendly experience. Right? How many people that use file servers and folder redirections do their users love that technology? It's very, very rare, because it definitely comes with its own its own issues. So, any other questions about that? I feel like we're going way too fast here. No questions? Okay.
Jump in and
Just start talking randomly to fill time. I like it.
I just